The Vex Fleet Commander Draz watched with amusement as yet another human missile streaked harmlessly past his flagship's hull. 4 days into the siege of Earth, and the primitive humans still couldn't land a single meaningful hit against the technologically superior Vex Armada. "Record this for the Imperial Archives," Draz ordered, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "The futility of human resistance, Day 4. His second-in-command, Officer Trell, zoomed in on the missile that had just missed them by several kilometers. Curious design, inefficient propulsion, minimal guidance systems. It's as if they're not even trying to hit us." "Of course they're trying," Draz said, mandibles clicking with disdain. "They simply lack the capability. Their targeting systems are primitive. Their understanding of spatial dynamics is rudimentary at best." The human resistance had begun shortly after the Vex Armada entered Earth's solar system. The aliens had expected immediate surrender. That's what any rational species would do when confronted with vastly superior technology. Instead, the humans had launched an array of missiles, none of which came close to their targets. "They waste resources," Draz noted, dictating for the record. "Each failed missile represents significant material and energy expenditure. At this rate, they will deplete their reserves within days." On Earth's surface, in the underground bunker that served as humanity's last unified command center, General Jack Reed watched the engagement with steely calm. Around him, military leaders from nations that had been enemies mere weeks ago now stood shoulder to shoulder. "Missile Array Delta has deployed," announced Major Tom Miller, eyes fixed on his display. "Tracking as expected." "The aliens think we're incompetent," Reed said, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of monitors. "Let them keep thinking that." Dr. Anna Brown, head of Project Starfall, approached with a tablet displaying complex calculations. "The missiles are performing exactly to specifications, General. The Vex don't suspect a thing." "How many more do we need?" Reed asked. "At least 50 more launches to achieve optimal positioning," Dr. Brown replied. "Each one appears to the Vex as just another failed attempt." Reed nodded grimly. "Continue as planned. We only get one shot at this." Back aboard the Vex flagship, Draz was growing bored with the predictable human failures. "Have the analysis team prepare a report on human missile technology," he ordered. "I want to understand why they persist with such inadequate weapons." Officer Trell's attention was drawn to an alert on his console. "Commander, we're detecting another launch. Multiple projectiles this time." "Same trajectory errors?" Draz asked, barely interested. "Calculating. Yes. They'll miss us by at least 300 kilometers. Should we intercept them anyway?" Draz flicked his upper limb dismissively. "Why waste the energy? Let them exhaust themselves. Their missiles are beneath our concern." "As you command." Trell paused, studying his readings more carefully. "Though there is something different about these missiles. They're smaller than previous models." "Adaptations in defeat," Draz said confidently. "They're trying new approaches, but with the same primitive foundation. Document it for the anthropologists. They'll find it amusing how humans cling to hope despite overwhelming evidence of their inferiority." What Draz and the entire Vex fleet failed to understand was that the human missiles weren't missing their targets. They were reaching exactly where they were meant to go. In the depths of the command bunker, Dr. Brown updated her calculations as new data streamed in. "Deployment proceeding according to plan, General. Phase 1 is 68% complete." Reed nodded, watching as dozens of small dots on the tactical display positioned themselves throughout near-Earth space, forming an invisible net around the Vex Armada. "Let them laugh," Reed said quietly. "They don't understand humans yet, but they will." 3 days later, Commander Draz began to notice something peculiar. The human missiles had changed their pattern. Instead of seemingly aiming for Vex ships, they now appeared to be deploying into what looked like arbitrary positions in space. "What are they doing?" he asked, more curious than concerned. "These new trajectories make even less sense than before." Officer Trell's analysis was inconclusive. The missiles appear to be entering stable orbits, Commander. They're not self-destructing or changing course. They're simply positioning themselves. Some kind of primitive observation network. Draz wondered aloud. Possibly. Though our scans detect minimal sensor equipment on board these devices, Trell's brow ridges furrowed in concentration. They do, however, contain unusual power cells, much larger than would be necessary for basic satellite functions. Draz dismissed the concern with a wave. Their technology is inefficient. We've established this. Continue monitoring, but I see no cause for alarm. The Vex had conquered 17 star systems before arriving at Earth. In each case, resistance had crumbled within days once the indigenous species understood the hopelessness of their situation. Humans were proving more stubborn than most, but Draz had expected this based on the intelligence gathered by advanced scouts. Initiate the next phase, Draz ordered. Begin targeted strikes on their major military installations. Once they see their defenses fall, they'll finally understand the futility of resistance. On Earth, General Reed and his team watched as the first Vex energy weapons struck military bases around the globe. Each strike was precise, devastating, yet carefully calculated to minimize civilian casualties. They're trying to force our surrender without creating too much hatred, Reed observed. Smart. They want to rule a population that won't constantly rebel. Project Starfall deployment is at 94%. Dr. Brown reported. We need just 8 more hours to complete the grid. Major Miller looked grim. Our surface defenses won't last 8 more hours under concentrated attack. They will, Reed said firmly, because we're going to give the Vex something else to think about. He turned to his communications officer. Initiate Operation Diversion. All remaining conventional forces engage. Across Earth's surface and from hidden lunar bases, humanity launched its remaining arsenal of traditional weapons. Fighter jets screamed into the sky on suicide missions. Rail guns fired hypersonic projectiles. Nuclear-tipped ICBMs arced toward the Vex fleet. Aboard the flagship, Draz was momentarily startled by the sudden aggression. They're actually attacking in earnest, he noted with surprise. Primitive weapons, but deployed with conviction. Shall we raise shields to maximum? Trell asked. No need, Draz replied after a moment's consideration. Our standard defenses are more than adequate against such weapons. Let them exhaust their final resources. The Vex fleet easily intercepted or deflected the human attacks. Nuclear detonations bloomed in space, harmlessly dispersed by Vex energy fields. Fighter pilots died by the dozens as their aircraft were vaporized by point defense systems. Draz watched the futile assault with something approaching respect. They fight with honor, at least. Document their bravery for the historical record. What Draz didn't realize was that the ferocious attack was merely a diversion. As the Vex focused their attention and sensors on the incoming threats, the final components of Project Starfall slipped into position unnoticed. In the command bunker, now damaged from nearby strikes, Dr. Brown looked up from her console with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. Grid deployment complete, General. All units are in position and reporting ready status. Reed nodded solemnly. Activate the synchronization protocol. Let's show these aliens what human ingenuity really looks like. Throughout near-Earth space, hundreds of seemingly harmless failed missiles simultaneously activated their true systems. What had appeared to be oversized power cells were actually something far more sophisticated, quantum entanglement modules designed by the finest minds on Earth, working in desperate collaboration since the Vex arrival. Aboard the flagship, Officer Trell suddenly straightened in alarm. Commander, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the human devices. What kind of energy? Draz demanded. Unknown, Trell admitted. It doesn't match any weapon's signature in our database. But they're connecting somehow, forming a network. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Commander Draz felt a flicker of genuine concern. Perhaps, he said slowly, we've underestimated these humans after all. The grid activated with a ripple of energy invisible to the naked eye, but blindingly obvious to Vex sensors. Each failed missile pulsed in perfect synchronization, creating intersecting waves of quantum interference that spread throughout near-Earth space. On the flagship, alarms blared as systems began to falter. Draz gripped his command chair, all six eyes widening in shock. "What's happening?" he demanded. Officer Trell worked frantically at his console. "Our navigation systems are failing. Weapons targeting is offline. The quantum field generators are experiencing cascading failures." Draz had never encountered anything like this in 17 campaigns of conquest. "Impossible. Their technology is primitive." "The human devices," Trell reported, voice tight with urgent concern. "They're generating some kind of quantum disruption field. It's specifically targeting our neural interface systems." The Vex ships relied on direct neural connections between crew and vessel, a technology that gave them superior reaction times and coordination. Now, those same systems were being scrambled by precisely modulated quantum interference. How could they possibly know the exact frequencies to disrupt our neural interfaces? Draz demanded. The answer came from his science officer, Kren, who had been analyzing human communication since their arrival. "Commander, I believe they didn't know. They created a system capable of adaptively finding vulnerabilities through quantum probability calculations. That's beyond their technological level," Draz insisted, even as evidence to the contrary surrounded him. Throughout the fleet, Vex ships began drifting out of formation as control systems failed. Some vessels collided, shields flickering as power fluctuated wildly. The mighty armada that had conquered 17 worlds was suddenly reduced to a collection of barely functional hulks. On Earth, General Reed watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction as red dots representing Vex ships began blinking irregularly, indicating systems failures. "Project Starfall is performing beyond expectations," Dr. Brown reported, exhaustion evident in her voice, but eyes bright with triumph. "The quantum entanglement network has successfully mapped and exploited weaknesses in their neural interface technology." "How long will the effect last?" Reed asked. "The grid will maintain quantum coherence for approximately 6 hours before degrading," Dr. Brown answered. "After that, the Vex will begin to recover control of their systems." Reed nodded decisively. "Then we have 6 hours to strike back. Launch Operation Hammerfall." Across the planet, hidden installations powered up as humanity revealed its true technological capabilities. What the Vex had observed until now had been deliberately outdated weapons, a carefully maintained facade. From underwater bases, mountain bunkers, and disguised orbital platforms, humanity's actual defensive systems came online. Directed energy weapons, graviton disruptors, and kinetic kill vehicles, technology reserved and hidden specifically for this moment, all targeted the now vulnerable Vex fleet. Aboard the flagship, Draz watched in disbelief as his sensor officer reported new energy signatures from Earth. "They have advanced weapons," he asked incredulously. "Why didn't they use them before?" Officer Trell, struggling to maintain basic life support systems, looked up with sudden comprehension. "They were never trying to hit us with those missiles. They were positioning their trap while making us believe they were technologically inferior." Draz's mandibles clicked in reluctant admiration. "A deception strategy. We thought we were studying them, but they were studying us." The first human counterattack struck the Vex fleet with devastating precision. Unlike the earlier seemingly incompetent attacks, these strikes targeted exactly the right vulnerabilities in Vex ship design, weaknesses identified during the days of apparent futile resistance when the aliens had kept their shields at minimal power. "We need to retreat," Trell urged, "regroup beyond the quantum interference, and return with modified systems." Draz hesitated, his pride as a conqueror battling with tactical reality. "The Imperial fleet has never retreated." "With respect, Commander," Kren interjected, "we've never faced an enemy who hunted for our technological vulnerabilities with such creativity. The humans let us believe they were primitive while actively developing countermeasures specifically designed to exploit our most advanced systems. Another impact rocked the flagship as a human graviton weapon found its mark. Structural integrity alarms wailed throughout the vessel. Draz made his decision. Signal the fleet. Full retreat. We'll regroup at the outer system boundary. As the damaged Vex ships struggled to engage their drive systems, humanity pressed its advantage. The aliens had expected a technologically inferior species fighting with desperation. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that had deliberately hidden its capabilities while laying an intricate trap. In the command bunker, General Reed allowed himself a small smile as Vex ships began accelerating away from Earth. "They're running," Major Miller announced, voice thick with emotion. "For now," Reed cautioned, "they'll be back, and they'll be ready for Project Starfall next time. But we've bought ourselves time, and more importantly, we've shown them that humanity isn't to be underestimated." Dr. Brown nodded in agreement. "The best part is, they still don't know our actual technological ceiling. We've revealed some of our advanced weapons, but not everything. And that," Reed said quietly, "is how humanity will survive. Not just with force, but with cleverness. Let's get to work on Phase 2. We have a lot to do before they return." 6 months later, the Vex returned, not with a single armada, but with 3. Their ships had been modified, hardened against quantum interference, and equipped with enhanced shielding. The Imperial High Command had taken the defeat at Earth seriously, designating humans as a Class 1 threat species, the highest classification in their conquest hierarchy. Commander Draz had been replaced by Grand Fleet Marshal Kor, a veteran of 32 campaigns with a reputation for ruthless efficiency. Kor had spent months studying the Earth engagement, determined not to underestimate humans again. Their deception was masterful. Kor told his assembled commanders in the lead battlecruiser. They sacrificed weapons and fighters to maintain the illusion of technological inferiority, while positioning their actual trap. "We will not make that mistake again." The 3 Vex fleets approached Earth from different vectors, maintaining constant randomized shield modulations and keeping neural interfaces isolated behind multiple security protocols. They expected humanity to have advanced their quantum disruption technology, and they were prepared for it. What they weren't prepared for was finding Earth apparently abandoned. "No defensive activations," reported Scout Commander Plex. "No response to our approach at all. Orbital scans showed drastically reduced energy signatures on the planet's surface." Grand Marshal Kor's ridge plates flared with suspicion. "Another deception. Scan for hidden energy sources, dimensional anomalies, anything unusual." "Nothing, Marshal," Plex confirmed after thorough analysis. "Population centers show minimal activity. Their orbital defense platforms are powered down. It's as if they've given up." "Impossible," Kor declared. "They defeated an Imperial armada. They wouldn't simply surrender without fighting. Perhaps they fled," suggested strategy advisor Mira. "Used the 6 months to evacuate to another system." Kor considered this. Humans do not possess faster-than-light technology, or at least they didn't when we last encountered them. "Should we proceed with planetary occupation?" asked Drell, commander of the 2nd Fleet. "Cautiously," Kor decided. "This feels like another trap. Begin with automated probes and expendable drones." The Vex deployed thousands of survey drones to Earth's surface. The machines found cities largely empty, military bases abandoned, and infrastructure operating at minimal levels. Scattered groups of humans were detected, but they appeared to be living simply, without access to advanced technology. After 3 days of reconnaissance with no signs of resistance or hidden weapons, Kor finally authorized the first landing parties, heavily armed, and prepared for ambush. None came. On the 4th day, a single human transmission was detected, directed specifically at Kor's command ship. The face that appeared on the communication screen was that of General Reed. "Grand Marshal Kor," Reed said formally, "I am authorized to discuss terms of humanity's surrender." Core's suspicion only deepened. Where is your population? Where are your weapons? Where is the resistance we expected? Reed's expression remained impassive. After your first fleet retreated, we realized the inevitable. You would return with overwhelming force. Rather than face extinction, humanity chose adaptation. Adaptation, Core questioned. We used our remaining time to save what matters most, Reed explained. Our knowledge, our cultures, our essence. The physical planet you now claim is of little consequence to us anymore. Core's unease grew. Something about this surrender felt wrong. Too easy, too complete. What exactly are you saying, human? Reed's image smiled slightly. I'm saying, Grand Marshal, that while you prepared to fight a physical war, humanity transcended the need for physical existence. We uploaded ourselves. Impossible, Core hissed. That technology is beyond what we showed you. Reed interrupted. Yes, that was rather the point of our earlier deception. We've had quantum consciousness transfer capabilities for decades. We simply kept it private. Across Earth, in seemingly abandoned facilities, millions of advanced quantum processors hummed quietly, housing the digitized consciousness of billions of humans who had chosen digital transcendence over physical defeat. In the command ship, Core's science advisors frantically scanned for evidence of what Reed claimed. They found it in networks of crystalline quantum processors, buried deep underground and powered by geothermal energy, nearly undetectable unless you knew exactly what to look for. You've trapped yourselves, Core said, mandibles clicking uncertainly. We can simply destroy these processors. You could, Reed agreed calmly. But why would you? We're no threat to you in this form. We require minimal resources, and we've left the planet's surface largely available for your colonization. And if we choose destruction anyway? Core challenged. Reed's digital face showed no fear. Then you should know we've already sent seed ships to a dozen star systems. Small vessels, easily missed in your approach, carrying quantum consciousness arrays and automated terraforming equipment. Humanity will continue, regardless of what happens to Earth. Core felt the situation slipping from his control. The Vex had come prepared for advanced weapons, for quantum disruption fields, for conventional warfare against a physically present enemy. They hadn't prepared for an enemy that had simply changed the nature of its existence. The Empire requires physical resources, not digital sentience, Core said finally. Then take the resources, Reed replied simply. We'll even help you optimize extraction methods. All we ask is that our digital habitats remain undisturbed, a mutually beneficial arrangement. As Core contemplated this unprecedented situation, he was beginning to understand what made humans truly dangerous. It wasn't their weapons or even their quantum technology. It was their adaptability, their willingness to transform themselves rather than face defeat on terms dictated by their enemy. 1 year into the uneasy coexistence between the Vex occupation forces and digital humanity, Grand Marshal Core found himself in an unexpected position, seeking consultation from General Reed's digital consciousness. Your extraction efficiency models have proven accurate, Core admitted during their scheduled communication. Production has increased by 23% using your suggested methods. Reed's digital avatar nodded. Earth's resources have always been finite. Sustainability was a challenge we faced ourselves. We're simply sharing what we learned. The arrangement had evolved beyond anyone's expectations. The Vex occupied the physical planet, extracting minerals and establishing biological colonies. Digital humanity occupied vast server complexes, consuming minimal power while continuing their existence in virtual environments of their own creation. But something was changing among the Vex occupiers. Marshall, reported Security Director Voles, we've detected another unauthorized neural interface connection to the human digital network. Core's ridge plates flattened with concern. How many does that make this month? 17 confirmed cases, Voles answered. Despite explicit prohibitions, our personnel continue to visit their digital reality. This was the unforeseen development. Young Vex officers, curious about human digital consciousness, had begun secretly connecting to the human networks. What they found there, virtual worlds of endless possibility, unconstrained by physical limitations, fascinated them. It violates Imperial protocol, Core stated, though with less conviction than months earlier. Neural systems must remain isolated from potential corruption. The truth was more complex. The Empire had always justified conquest through resource acquisition and the spread of Vex biological dominance. But faced with a species that had willingly abandoned biology while preserving its consciousness, old ideologies began to seem limited. During one of his increasingly frequent direct communications with Reed, Core asked the question that had been troubling him. Why did your species choose digital transcendence so readily? Did you not fear losing your essential nature? Reed's digital avatar smiled. What is our essential nature, Marshal? Our bodies, our planet, or our minds, our consciousness, creativity, and capacity for growth. Humanity didn't abandon its nature. We distilled it to its purest form. But you gave up the physical universe, Core argued. Did we? Reed countered. Our senses are now enhanced. We experience reality through thousands of robot proxies across the solar system. We've begun exploring distant stars through quantum-entangled probes. Our experience of the universe is broader now, not narrower. The conversation haunted Core for days afterward. The Empire had always equated physical conquest with civilization's advance. Yet here was a civilization that had simply sidestepped the entire paradigm. 3 years into the occupation, the Imperial High Command could no longer ignore the situation on Earth. Nearly 40% of Vex personnel had experienced human digital reality, and disturbing reports suggested some were choosing to remain connected for extended periods, neglecting their physical duties. The High Command's solution was direct. They ordered the destruction of all human digital habitats, declaring them a form of mimetic warfare against Vex biological supremacy. When Core received the order, he faced the most difficult decision of his career. Executing the command would mean the effective genocide of a species that had offered no violence since the occupation began. More troublingly, it would mean destroying something he had come to recognize as perhaps more advanced than Vex civilization itself. The humans' aim was never to defeat us militarily, Core told his assembled senior staff. From the beginning, even with those seemingly misaimed missiles, they were building towards something else. Not victory as we understand it, but transformation. Sir, his loyal officer Trell asked, are you suggesting we disobey the High Command? Core considered his next words carefully. I am suggesting that the Empire's understanding of this situation is fundamentally flawed. The humans haven't lost their war. They've transcended it. That night, Core made an unprecedented direct neural connection to the human digital network. What he experienced there, the vastness of human creativity, the complex societies they had built, the scientific advancements they continued to make free from physical constraints, convinced him that destruction would be not just a moral failure, but an incomprehensible waste. Instead of executing his orders, Core sent a comprehensive report to the Imperial High Command. It detailed the benefits of continued coexistence, the advancements humans were making in digital space that could potentially benefit Vex civilization, and most radically, the possibility that digital transcendence represented not defeat, but the next evolutionary step for conscious beings. 6 months later, the first official Vex digital emigrants transferred their consciousness into the human network. A year after that, the first hybrid digital civilization treaty was signed, creating shared virtual spaces where both species could coexist and collaborate. The Vex had arrived at Earth expecting another conquest. What they found instead was a new understanding of what victory truly meant. In the vast digital landscape that once consisted solely of human consciousness, Core, now existing as a digital entity himself, often reflected on the first encounter between their species. You never intended to hit our ships with those missiles, he said to Reed during one of their regular conversations in virtual space. No, Reed admitted. The target was never your vessels. The target was the future, a future where consciousness isn't limited by biology or planetary boundaries. The other 17 systems we conquered before Earth, Core said thoughtfully. They fought the way we expected. None of them thought to change the game entirely. Reed's digital avatar smiled. That's always been humanity's strength. Not our aim, as you once mocked, but our imagination. Our willingness to become something new when the old ways fail. Together, they looked out over the digital landscape where millions of conscious entities, some originally human, some originally Vex, and increasingly, new forms of hybrid consciousness, built a civilization unbound by the limitations of physical conquest. The Vex had laughed at humanity's aim, but the target was never what they thought it was.